Hello, everybody. Welcome to the LIUniverse. I'm Dr. Charles Liu, your host, but of course, you should call me Chuck. It is such an incredible pleasure to be here, as always, with my co-host, Allen Liu. Hey, Allen, how's it going?
Hi, it's going pretty good today.
Good. Examine any interesting sphere rules lately?
Spherules. Well, I can think of every so often a bead of plastic gets stuck on my 3D printer, and sometimes it makes a spherule, or at least a
Yeah,
sphere. Not sure if it's a sphere rule.
yeah, close enough. Sphere rules are cool because they have something to do with our joyfully cool cosmic thing of today. But beyond that, even cooler than that is our guest today. I am incredibly happy. And forgive me, everyone, if I sound like a fanboy, because I am, uh, of our guest today, Dr. Cady Coleman. Hello, Cady.
Hey, how are you?
Good. And maybe I should call you Colonel Coleman
I like
because,
I like Katie.
okay, Cady,
There we
I
go.
could,
You know,
or Astronaut Coleman.
I've actually been to the Ludiverse before.
Yeah, you
Yes,
were part
that's
of
right.
the Adventures in Science episode with three of us.
Well, and I just, I started to think, I mean, was it all a dream? Was I really there? And now I realize that you do exist.
Well,
Okay.
that's good.
Yay! Confirmation is always good. But thank you so much for being with us, Cady. I can't wait to talk with you about all kinds of fun things, especially this new book of yours, which I have only seen small portions of, but is just amazing. I can't wait.
Oh, is this when I hold it up?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm
this is
new at
when
I'm
you're
new
holding
at
it
this part. Okay. Dun,
up.
dun,
Do it.
dun.
Yay, sharing space. And I love the hairdo.
Oh,
That's
Nice.
fantastic. For those of you who are just on the audio, Katie just is a shot of her in space. So the hair is just pristinely non-gravitational. It's amazing, utterly amazing.
Alan, and like Chuck, you would have good hair in space too.
Oh,
Alan would
thank
have
you.
tremendous
Oh man, that would be
hair.
fun.
I'm just saying.
Maybe I got
Oh
to get
wow.
into one of those parabolic flights and see what happens.
Oh,
Ooh.
definitely. Yeah,
Let's
clean,
make
like always, like really good clean hair. So just like,
Nice.
Love that. Okay, so as always, we begin with today's joyfully cool cosmic thing, and this is indeed truly cosmic and truly cool. Now, the Chinese Space Agency recently launched their Chang'e 5 spacecraft to the moon and brought it back with about 4 pounds of rock samples from the surface of the moon. And recently, a paper has been published that describes the discovery of really cool things on some of that soil. In fact, not
Or
even soil. What happened was
regolith.
that,
Yeah.
right, on the regolith, excuse me,
Yeah.
of this moon, um,
I like
there
that you
was
guys are a pair. Keeps us all straight.
Yeah. There you go.
there's a glass bead that was on there, this sort of volcanic glass created by geological effects on the moon. And this bead is tiny. It's only, 50 microns across or something like that, 12 microns across. And just so you all know, it's maybe the width of a sheet of plastic wrap. Okay,
Yeah.
not big at all. Uh, but on this bead, there is an even smaller meteorite pit.
Really?
It's a
Wow.
crater that's a
Okay.
mere 2 microns across.
Okay.
And it's so small that we would not be able to see it except with the microscope. But that is, for geologists, plenty big. For them to look on this little bead's little tiny micrometeorite crater and found that there's a compound of titanium and oxygen. So this is Ti2O, titanium oxide, or more formally, di-titanium oxide,
Yeah.
that is in mineral form that cannot exist on Earth. Two new mineral forms of titanium oxide found on the moon.
In this little tiny thing on a little tiny thing.
One little itty bitty
Awesome.
glass piece, which
That's
is
really
just totally
exciting.
amazing. I love that, and it's so cool. And Katie, as a polymer scientist, material scientist,
In addition
you
to all the other cool things you do.
to all the other cool things that you do. That's right. I imagine you have really good insight on the kinds of things that happen to materials in space, on rocks, things that just don't happen here, right?
Well, not so much on the rock end of things. So I'm always
Mhm.
pretty excited. Although I did get to go to Antarctica
Ooh,
to do
that's right.
meteorite collection and just understanding more about that world. And I
Yeah.
don't know, it makes this world from like, billions of years ago real, as if it's like
Yeah.
today when people tell stories. Well, it turns out, you know. So,
Yeah.
so I imagine everybody's pretty excited about that one. We did find a lunar meteorite, by the
That's
way.
awesome.
It was very
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little green, no kidding.
Ha!
Wow.
But not cheese.
Not
But
cheese, just green.
like to me, so it seems like we discover new things when they can behave differently,
Hmm.
but
Mhm.
also when we can see differently or measure
Mhm.
differently. And so the coincidence that we probably have some of. I imagine they're going to go and look at all the lunar samples we've had
Yeah,
previous to
yeah.
this to then look for this, because we probably didn't have instrumentation that could look that closely,
Hmm.
That's
right?
true. That's
And
That
true.
makes
so
sense.
I think it'll be interesting to see if it was, if it's been there, but we just couldn't see it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the rocks that came back from the Apollo missions may well have glass spherules like this.
Or maybe
Uh,
the Russian robots
you're
also.
right. Yeah,
Hmm.
they all have them. We just never saw them before,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that would be really
I don't know. I
interesting.
just think it's, when you take away gravity, one of the things that, like in making semiconductors and making different kinds of alloys, something really simple is that, like, the heavier stuff, when you're trying to make it on Earth, the heavier stuff sinks to the bottom.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
hard to have a good, even distribution to then figure out, is this, a material we really want to make and make well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so just the fact that you can make a material that has really even distribution up in space, because the heavy stuff doesn't sink, is
Oh, yeah.
really, interesting to me.
And I imagine the airlessness affects it as well.
Well, it depends how you do it. But that would be like out in space, but even in the cabin, a lot of these are like molten samples in a furnace,
Oh, okay.
in the cabin. And just one of my favorite experiments is with liquids up there.
Okay.
Mm.
And, and I really especially like it because we did the precursor experiment for it back in 1995
Oh,
on my
cool.
Wow.
shuttle mission, when the purpose of this shuttle mission was to figure out how are we going to how should we build a space station so that we can do science experiments up there.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
Wow.
our laboratory in the back of the space shuttle was specifically to sort of touch on different aspects of material science and physics and chemistry, and figure out how to, should we do it this way? Can the scientists on the ground see? Like, for example,
Yeah.
we did protein crystal growth, where they had a camera looking down the microscope, but
Oh,
I
wow.
had a better view with the naked eye. We all
Oh,
did.
interesting.
And
Wow.
so,
Fantastic.
they needed to teach us, actually, is that
Mhm.
a bunch of tiny mealy growth crystals, or are they actually beautiful tiny little bitty, about to be star crystals?
That's really
Wow.
cool.
I
So
love that.
I don't know, it's just really interesting. But this liquid experiment was literally just tubes with liquid in it to see, like, what happened. Where did the liquid go in zero gravity? And that grew into this experiment that all of us, I would say, loved on the space station. Um, and its name will come to me sometime during this podcast. But
Oh.
literally containers in different shapes
Oh,
with
fun.
liquid in there, or maybe you let the liquid in, and the measuring tools were high definition video and photo.
Oh, that's
Whoa.
cool.
And so, like, for example, things that they've been able to figure out is, like, in this certain kind of shape, container, if you change the corner angle by like 3 degrees, you can guarantee that all the liquid will be in the corner.
Oh,
So, so you could use that
Wow.
to design your fuel tank to go to Mars, right?
Mhm,
You
mhm,
could
mhm.
also, if you think in a different dimension, you could design a toilet where, in terms of peeing, you didn't have to have something with a motor, because the shape of the inside of the hose
Will
would
that's
drive
awesome.
actually
things.
drive the fluid, and you wouldn't have to worry about it breaking.
Oh, yeah.
Marvelous.
Oh, man.
So I don't know. I
That's
really I loved being up there, because it just seemed like every new experiment, every step of every experiment was like one step forward.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Well,
When That's amazing. When you were on the ISS, did the toilet ever break?
Oh,
You
yes. I
yes?
People would say, we haven't gone to Mars yet. I'm like, listen, the toilet breaks, the air breaks. We are not ready.
I
We
know they
are
just
not ready.
they sent up a replacement part for the urine processing system on the Starliner mission that happened recently.
I'll bet. I'll bet. Well,
Wow.
but we learned things in doing this, right? And there's iterations, and that's part of the big purpose of the space station, is
Yeah.
to use that and see. I mean, it's not the same as the moon, and you want to always think,
Yeah,
what
fair.
this experiment I'm doing, what does it simulate and what does it not?
Mm.
But definitely I mean, the toilet thing is big in terms of health, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you would.
and
Think
all
about
the
it on
parts
Earth
about it.
too.
Oh, and by the way, Appendix 1, okay, just saying,
Okay.
is how to pee and poop in space.
Seems
I love
important.
it.
Because people want to know, and
Kind of important, yes.
yeah, I don't know. I think people when I don't know when people say like, what's it like, or they want to know about these kinds of things because it's very human
Yeah.
to like want to know that you're going to have your personal space and embarrassing things aren't probably going to happen, and and so up there it's true, and they're really just saying, I'm a human. Do you think I could be up there?
Hmm. That's a really cool way
I
of
think
putting it.
that's marvelous. Yeah. This is a great time for a question from the audience. Alan, we have some queued up for Katie.
We do. I think I'm going to start with Violetta's question. So,
Okay.
some of our questions are coming from students from a place called the School Without Walls in Washington,
Oh,
D.C.
cool.
Excellent.
So that's fun. So Violetta is one of those students, and Violetta is asking, "What is your outlook on the overview effect?"
Ooh. First, you should tell us what the overview effect is, because some of us don't know.
Good
And
point. Good
yeah.
point. So the overview effect is a term that is used that to say that my way of summarizing it is that once you leave our planet and get to hang out and look back at it, it's going to be and maybe maybe the moon or wherever, but you're going to have a view you never could have had unless you went to space, and they call it the overview effect. In that you will come back changed, and I think in some wonderful ways, and to some people that's actually a religious kind of experience. It's not
Wow.
exactly my way. I actually, even and a man named Frank White was the person who's still around and still has discussion groups and is a wonderful guy to talk with. Um, and even though I really like him, I kind of wish that they wouldn't make this term, because it's
Hmm.
sort of like you're supposed to define within this term how you felt. And I
Oh.
think it kind of like it's sort of like we already know, but we want you to describe your little bit different part. And I
Hmm.
don't know. So I part of me doesn't like it, but
Uh,
at the same
Okay.
time, you know, I I think it's great to. I mean, it's actually a good way to just to ask people, what being in space was like for them. And for
Ah.
me, it had to do with um, being up there. And I just thought when I went, I knew, once I got to be an astronaut, assigned to a mission, part of you doesn't really believe that this will happen. You will leave the Earth. And our first mission, the same one with the little liquids,
Yeah.
we slipped 7 times over 30 days.
Oh man.
So, and we had
Whoa.
5 rookies on the flight. So the 5 of us are like, were they just kidding? Are we really just going to
Ah,
go?
Oh
wow.
man.
Anyway, so, to be up, so I knew I was going to go to space, and I just thought I'd be going to a different place.
Hmm.
And then when I got up there, I still felt, I looked back at the Earth, and I, I still felt at home. It's
Oh,
just that
interesting.
the
Oh.
whole place felt like home, and
Hmm.
home was closer than I thought.
That's really cool.
Hey, I like that.
I know.
We.
I like it too. And I think, for me, the overwhelming feeling is, boy, if people just understood that they're just like on the other side from each other, like, and that these lines that we draw on the map, just really don't have to mean so very much, because we all have a lot of work to do. And if only people could be connected together, we could get a lot more done.
Yeah, that's really
Hey.
cool. I kind of want to ask the little bonus question from and the other student at this point. Is that okay? Or do you?
Sure. Let's just go right for it. Yeah, you are the question meister,
All right,
Alan.
I'm
You
gonna
you
take
you
my
make the call.
question meister powers. Um, so sort of a different perspective. You were mentioning that if you don't want to have to frame your experience in one particular way, this is another student from the School Without Walls, Anne, who is asking sort of a more general version of it, I guess.
Okay.
How is space? Just three
How is
words.
space?
How is space?
Space is awesome. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know. I think when you are down here on Earth, though, and after a little while, once we get to be about 2 or 3 years old, I mean,
Mhm.
we understand like where we are, and automatically we start to have kind of limits. Like,
Mm.
oh, that would be too far to run, or I can't run that fast to catch that dog, or just I mean, we start to have we understand what we can do and what we can't do, And it's such a luxury to be in a place where you're constantly discovering more things that you could do. In fact, just so I mean, I loved the flying. I mean, it's not about I know we make fun of my hair, right? But or not make fun, um but it's not about the floating, although that is cool too. To me, it's about the fact that you can fly.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
And I actually made a little video, I don't think it's still up on YouTube, called Splitting Hairs in Gravity, where
Mm.
Karen Nyberg made this video for me because
Ooh.
I wanted to explain this thing to you people, where if you take one hair from your head and then you
Uh-huh.
stretch it and you sort of push on one thing like a handrail or my microphone here, if you just push, if you pushed hard, you'd break it. If you
Mhm.
push gently, you can push yourself across the whole space station
On one
Wow.
hair.
with one hair. So that's how
Wow.
little force it takes to move. And so you could imagine, and some people aren't graceful, some people are graceful. Everybody gets more graceful. And then when I was watching the TV, watching something on the NASA channel, and Kayla Barron was up there, and I
Mhm.
saw her literally, like, there's handrails on the floor. And there just are things to hold on to or
Mhm.
tuck our feet under and stop, right? And they're handrails just like you would have on a stairwell, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
there's a row of them as you go down the module. And Kayla is actually like running across and I'm like, it never occurred to me to run like that. So I just think we're going to have different games. We're going to have different, you know, everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. That sounds like so much fun, but at the same time, I know it's so much work to be up there in space. I mean, never mind to unclog the toilets or whatnot, but just in your book, it's like every single minute that you're awake, there is a task you have to achieve. It isn't just fun and games. There's always something that you have to be paying attention to, right? It's remarkable.
Well, I think it's a lesson for Earth here too, in that, technically we work, I think, about 12 hours a day, or maybe it's supposed to be less or whatever. And we have about 2 hours in there for exercise. Um, but you meet in the morning and talk to mission controls about 7:30 in the morning, and then you should be done by 5 or 6. Maybe it's 7,
Mhm.
and then you should go to bed at 10.
Ah,
And
Okay.
if I went back, I would do that.
oh,
Oh,
It's not
interesting.
what I did. Okay.
really? What you choose to do instead?
Really work a little bit too much. And
Mm.
partly I'd feel like, well, I'm a little bit slow at this, and because I'm somebody that has to really check that they didn't, I could lose the TV remote twice in one night. So I have to really
Mm.
make sure that I really put everything away in the right
Uh-huh.
place and
Uh-huh.
nothing's left out, because it could be lost, like, literally forever, right?
Wow.
And so, and also just, and then you want to get ready for the next day. And it's not really in your timeline, but you'll have a better day in the morning if you go ahead and read all the experiments you're going to do and realize, oh, I'm going to have to get in that cupboard and do that thing. I should stage a big bag to throw all that stuff in, so I can get to the thing at the bottom. And
Wow.
so, and most people do this. And so we always work longer. And then
Mm.
there's the things that you as a human want to do, say hi to your family, which we can do on an internet protocol phone,
Wow.
headset kind of thing,
Uh-huh.
um, and video once a week. But also, things like, the things that you personally want to do, like look out the window or read a book or play music, or whatever is your thing to do on social media. I mean, we didn't really have as slick as internet. You could shop, but it was so hard. It was so hard. I literally never did, because it was just hard to do.
Was it free shipping?
Not to the
Ron
space
Ron
station, I suppose.
Ron Gillen was up there, and they called Domino's because they had some delivery thing that if
Oh, no.
pizza
Free
didn't
pizza.
arrive within a certain amount of time, they were owed a free pizza. They go, when we get home, we want that pizza because we're up here and there's no pizza. But so it
Oh,
is really busy, and there's this pressure that I think is very self-induced.
mm,
And when you were describing, like, you have to do something every minute,
right.
I know a lot of people on a mission, and feel like that, like every single thing counts. And a mission can be, working on a campaign down here, taking care of your family and making sure everybody's okay, or maybe somebody needs extra care. And a lot of people by the end of the day feel like they haven't really had a minute to themselves,
Wow.
Hmm.
right?
Mhm,
And
Yeah.
mhm.
I think that if I went back, I would try to actually just take it at a little bit better pace, go to bed a little earlier. Anyone out there that is like, especially in the college and high school
Hey.
realm, I
Yeah.
am going to
Recently.
say sleep. Look at the data, okay? Look at the data. You will be smarter every day
Wow.
if you sleep more. It doesn't mean it's not my forte, so I can lecture about it, um, but I think it's a nice thing to think about down here too.
Yeah.
Is that kind of self care is really important. It's important for astronauts too.
Well, one of the things you say in the book, which I will remember for the rest of my life, I hope, is the term slow is fast. Slow is fast. And that's kind of what you were talking about now.
Hmm.
We've always known that a stitch in time saves nine or whatnot, but I love that statement, slow is fast. And you have a gazillion of these marvelous statements in the book, which you
Thank
should now hold
you.
up again. Please, now's the
Oh,
time.
this book?
Yeah, that one.
Actually,
Sharing
I'm saying
space.
this because actually, this is actually the very first copy of the book that I got.
Oh,
I did
really?
actually get it a week ago, but I was on it. I went on a trip. I picked it up,
Oh,
ran to the airport,
marvelous.
went on the trip, and then a box of them actually arrived
Oh,
Oh,
on
wow.
wow.
Tuesday.
What a
And
feeling.
so I'm still like pretty thrilled. Like when I don't know, I got a new flute one time a long time ago, and I would just like
Uh-huh.
pick it up and play a note, and I'm
Yeah.
like, it's the book. It's still here. It exists.
Yeah. Picking up a
That's
copy of your
marvelous.
own book is really cool.
Yeah. I think that's marvelous. Like I said, I've only started reading bits and pieces of it as I jump
You're
from
nice
thing to
to do
thing
that.
because I don't. Yeah, and it's just so marvelous. And um, there's so much in there, not just sort of stories of the actual space activity and life and things like that, but just ideas that we should all kind of know about. If we were in fact astronauts or not, the big ideas that we should remember as we go through day to day. I would love to hear you tell us just a few of some of those really cool things and some very counterintuitive things.
Well, I'll share some things that were at least helpful to me. I did actually think about this while we were getting ready, and I was having trouble with my headset, which is why I'm not wearing one.
Yeah.
And I had this headset that I could use just one more try to, is it the headset port? Is it the headset?
Yeah.
And I wanted,
Mhm.
but this thing was unimaginably tangled, and we were stressed because we knew you were waiting and
Yeah.
wanting to get this, and so you just think, and you're pulling at little strings, and slow is fast,
Mhm.
and when you're trying to decide, should I get off at this exit on the highway? When somebody's saying, I can't hear you, is it, you're trying to figure out the communication, or a whole, auditorium of people are waiting for you to figure out the projector. I mean, these are all feelings that happen to real people. And,
Yeah.
you know, s- doing things just one little step at a time, trying to be really calm is what works. And it came up in the context of spacewalking,
Mm.
especially because, you just make one move where you're like, well, maybe I'll just give myself a shove and go there. And first of all, you always want to be holding on, but also that might be the time that you're just a little bit careless with not being really aware of where your body is and the suit is, and you can have your tether, which is your sort of big long dog leash lifeline,
Yeah.
Mhm.
could go between you and the back of the suit, and then you
Oh.
need your partner to. I mean, you don't have to, but it's a lot easier.
Mhm.
It can be really tough. So, one careless move and you've got a lot to undo. And
Oh,
I think it's the same when you're, in a hurry and something feels like it's burning on the stove, and
right.
just all those kinds of
Yeah.
things. So that's like a little one, but most of the ones that I am particularly proud of, I guess, or I don't know about proud of, but I think are really important that people should know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
is that we like to talk about the I, and that there is no I in team.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of team sports. I mean, I rode on the crew team,
Mhm.
and and it's about how it's not about you, it's about the whole team, right? And there's no place for you, and you who is tired or doesn't want to be there that day. No place for that, because it's about the team and not about you. But in real life, I mean, actually on the rowing team or the baseball team or whatever, it is actually all about the sum of the individuals.
Hmm.
And so it's
Ooh,
about what you as an individual bring. And it's also about what your teammate brings that they may or may not bring with ease. And
wow.
maybe you're someone that can help them feel better about bringing their talents. speaking up with their ideas. I mean, and I think of this when I look at a Zoom screen and people are trying to make a decision, and I try to look for people who are like quiet or, seem like they might have a question. And so I just think it's really important, the power of the, of the individual there. And there's, I think, some different little techniques to think about. Like when you're in a group, think about, am I being brave, and am I being open? Because the first
Mhm.
one will get you to speak up, and the
Mhm.
second one will get you to look around and listen and
Mm.
realize, who, who's trying to tell me who they are. And,
Mhm.
and chances are that if they're trying to tell me, it's because on an ordinary day I don't get them, and I
Mm.
don't
Ooh.
get it, and I make some assumptions. And part of that is, as as a woman in the space program, these things, being sort of a little, I mean, it's I don't know. It's easy to do. I mean, in the book, there's also a story of
Yeah.
how my lab partner at MIT and I underestimated each other and did not choose each other.
Oh.
Oops.
She was like, I mean, it's a real story. She's like tall, blonde, Miss Wisconsin. I mean, she
Wow.
wasn't Miss Wisconsin, right? But and we were choosing lab partners, and I just thought, she was a transfer student. I'm like,
Mm.
who knows? She's from another school. Who knows if she's even smart? My
Uh-huh.
my head thought those things, right?
Uh-huh.
She looked at
Sure.
me. We were sophomores in college at MIT,
Mhm.
and she looked at me and thought, nobody that cute could do chemistry. And so we actually each chose lab partners who were perfectly great lab partners, and we're all friends to this day. But it
Mm.
only took, probably a day for us to realize, Laura and I, that, we had everything in common, and both of us were probably pretty good at what we did. She
Mhm.
became a MacArthur Fellow,
Ooh.
taught at the University of Wisconsin, and now she's chemistry and biology and doing really interesting carbohydrate and microbiome
Ooh,
work at MIT.
that stuff's really
Incredible.
cool.
So that's
Wow.
reasonably successful, we have to
Yeah.
say. And I
And
had a
you
very good job, right?
oh, yeah. I would say so.
Cool. You got the cool
And
I get to
T-shirt
wear the
too.
shirt,
oh,
right?
yeah, I love your shirt. You should tell us a little bit about that. Those of you who are just on the audio, this is a shirt that has an astronaut helmet and a zigzag pattern of multicolors zapping through it across a black background.
I love this shirt because it suggests a bunch of things, and it's made by a company called People Love Art. And the reason I like to talk about them is because I met them through working with Astro Access, which is a
Mhm.
group of people that are striving to understand, what does it mean to have a disability and also function in space.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Maybe not as well, and maybe actually better. You know,
Wow.
I mean, when we have a fire with smoke, I think I
Mhm.
want to be with the people who are vision challenged in
Oh,
their everyday life.
Right.
And
yeah,
in
that makes
fact,
sense.
they had an idea, and so I've been working with them some, but they have a lot going on, and I'm just a small part of it. But one of the ideas was, instead of just having a sign that says, which in an arrow, which way is the fire extinguisher, which way is the oxygen mask
Mhm.
on the space station, why not have those arrows be raised so that when there's smoke, you would
You can
know?
touch them.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and when you think about down here on Earth, I mean, it's a simple thing, but the curbs that are sloped down to the ground, the
Yeah.
curb
Yeah.
cuts, originally, um, that was for people who were not sighted, who didn't have sight,
Oh.
and so they wouldn't be falling off the curb. And then it turns out that there's enormous number of uses, and everyone
Yes.
can function, more easily,
Yeah, I've heard people call it the
with all the
curb cut effect.
strollers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a really neat company where the artists actually share 50% of the profits, and
Oh.
then 15% of the profits go to some cause that all the artists in that group, like in my case, the space group, agree on. And I'm friends with the people who founded the company, and but they make them for women. They fit.
Ah.
They make them for men too, but I have a lot of like really big, like large t-shirts, right? And I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when it fits. And
Wow.
anyways, but I like
Well,
it
now
because it sends a lot of messages, if that's
mhm.
makes sense.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for joining us for part one of our conversation with Dr. Cady Coleman. I know we kind of ended mid sentence there, but don't worry. We finish our wonderful conversation in part two. So please join us for that. And if you like what you see or hear, please support us on Patreon. Thank you, as always, for being with us. Thank you for being a part of the LIUniverse.